that I did it and let the cards fall. All right, thanks for coming out today, and thank you so much. Got the live stream working so far. Everything looks okay. I mean, I don't know how my face looks. To all the people out there, no one's connected yet. This is really more just a test and record. And coming out today. At Faith Bible Seminary, our motto is biblical education for effective, oh boy, I got too close, effective Christian ministry. So that motto really undergirds everything that we do at Faith Bible Seminary. And that motto, a lot of technical difficulties today, really undergirds everything we do at Faith Bible Seminary. So let me tell you a little bit more about why you would want to choose the Master's of Arts in Biblical Counseling. So we offer, we're just going to power through, just ignore all that junk on the screen. All right, so one of the reasons we started this program, a story that was really instructive in starting this program, was Dr. Rob Green was a young pastor. Dr. Rob Green, who you probably have heard from, has a degree in Greek, okay? So he was ready to answer any question about Greek, but the first question somebody asked him definitely was not about Greek. The first questions he got was, my husband's cheating on me. You know, what do I do? You know, my grandmother's really sick. Is it right to end life support? So the Bible has ways to answer those questions, but at that time he didn't. So we took this program for pastors and lay people who were like that, who knew the Bible had answers but didn't. Is the approach, again, biblical education for effective Christian ministry is the approach that undergirds everything we do. In addition to that, we offer flexibility. You can finish the program in as little as 2 years or as many as 6, and we offer classes online and module as well. We give you the opportunities to use your skills. Every student who graduates from this program must complete 30 hours of supervised counseling. So you are going to be able to see what you learn in the classroom and how it affects you in the counseling office. Finally, all of our faculty are not only credentialed in whatever field they're in, biblical counseling or some similar field, but they are counseling every day. Dr. Bob Kellerman is counseling almost every day, or at least once a week. I don't know, maybe at this point with all the work the seminary has for him, twice a month.
Most of the ones a day.
So anyway, but that is the experience of all of our professors. So they know that what they're teaching you is not just something that works theoretically, but has actually been used in the counseling office. So one of the questions we often get is MABC degree. So one thing we always train leaders. All of our graduates, a small sampling of our graduates, are leading. In some others, they are researching new issues in biblical counseling. But I want to highlight a few. Chris Moles, who again you may have heard of, he was one of our very first graduates. He realized an issue in his local church. Again, he was counseling in his local church when he realized that men who abused their wives were, and so he wrote his thesis on that. And his thesis became his book, The Heart of Domestic Abuse, which became his ministry. I also want to point out Bev Moore, who co-authored a book about overcoming childhood sexual abuse. Bev Moore had been a counselor with Faith Biblical Counseling Ministries for many years. She did not have a bachelor's degree, but she was able to enter our program. We can accept up to 10% of our student body with no bachelor's degree. She went through the program and she wrote her thesis on overcoming childhood sexual abuse. Co-authored that with Bev Gannon, and now she is a published author. So all of our graduates are out there. They are researching, they are leading, and they are doing great things for God using the education that the seminary provided them. I want to take a minute now for you guys to hear from Larissa. She is a recent graduate of our program. She is from Brazil. I almost said Portugal. She speaks Portuguese, but she is from Brazil. And she, counseling her local church, wrote her thesis on common misconceptions about sex in marriage. And it's a longer Brazilian title, but that's a rough translation, I'm told. So let's hear from Larissa. Here we go. We might. There we go.
MABC program was the best investment of my life. I can tell that for sure. I had the opportunity to watch other classes in other seminaries before, and the difference in face seminary is that I had the opportunity to practice everything I was learning. And what I can say is that my love for Christ has improved. My knowledge of the Bible also. One of the best things of the program, I'm not there to help other people, but I feel that I have grown a lot. I have to deal with some things that I used to struggle.
Okay. Okay, I have not had this much trouble all week. That was Larissa. We've talked a little bit about the program just from a really broad level. Let's talk a little bit more about specifics. So in our program, 12 total classes. 2 of those classes provided independent study. So they are working on your thesis and doing your 30 hours supervised counseling. Not fall into sort of your standard 15-week schedule. And they're self-directed. I'm happy to talk about them a little bit more when we get to questions. We do the classes, 5 of which are 100 and 5 of which are module classes, okay? So I do just want to talk about online classes real quick here. So in an online, they're 15 weeks long, you'll have 9 weeks of time, and these are the most flexible of all of our. In the first 9 weeks, you're going to post to discussion boards, listen to lectures online, read books. So I do want to mention that in taking the online meetings, live be there for those 7 to 9 hour to hour and a half meetings a week, but we gave up a long time ago trying to coordinate 25 time zones. So we do record those for students to listen to their time, but as I mentioned, live is best. In the last 6 weeks of class, it is very self-focused. We're letting you have time to write your papers and available, so you can email them or call them. You can still touch base with your fellow students, but for the most part, we're just sort of leaving you alone to finish up, okay? That's our online. 5 of 12 total classes are that. The next type is the module class. So they're a little different. We have 7 weeks of that online class interaction time. Again, online discussion boards, but they're not gonna have any of the online meetings, the video. 1 week out of 15 will be here. Now, if you finish 2 years, you have to come to finish. So every student lives in the 48, I know there's 50, just the lower 48. If you live in the 48 United States, you have to come to Lafayette 5 separate times. Is there anyone here who lives in Alaska, Hawaii, or another country? Okay, where are you from? India. Okay, great. Talk to me, we'll talk a little after this, something you can actually do something a little bit different. So why do we make you guys do a module? Let me be forthright. We could make the whole thing online. We really could, but we don't want to. We probably never will, just because when you are counseling in your local church, it is more than likely going to be face-to-face. You are going to be meeting with people, and as Bob can probably attest, there's just something about seeing facial expression, tonal inflection, that just doesn't come across over the phone. And additionally, for students who do make the trek, they love it, okay? We couldn't get any students here this time around to talk about it, but they love it. I had a student email me. She started in April of 2008, so just less than a year ago. She's taken 2 modules already. And she says, every semester that I have a module class, they are the highlight of my semester. They love them. Now, I do want you to hear from Brenda. Brenda is set to graduate this year. She is from Tennessee. She is writing her thesis on how do you counsel parents who have adult addicts. And so she took a short video for us to talk about the modules.
Well, I would say the modules are a must. And I was somewhat skeptical when I started the program. I thought, why do I need to go to Indiana, particularly in the winter? I'm a Southern girl. I don't like cold. I don't like snow. But I would come every winter, knowing what I know now about the modules. First of all, you have the opportunity to sit with some of the best minds in the biblical counseling movement. Steve Byers, Dr. Bob Kellerman, Dr. Robert Jones. These are men who I just have such high regard for and have read so many of their works or sat with their teachings. So to be able to have that weekly interaction and to ask them questions and to hear from them. But one of the things I probably enjoyed the most about sitting with the professors is not only hearing their doctrine, but really getting to have a glimpse of who they are as a person. I found that the professors are both teachers and learners. These are such humble, what have that, but I with a better sense of what a counselor who is following Christ should look like. The second part of that is the classmates. Wonderful opportunity to meet people, not only from the United States, but from around the world. I've had people affiliated with South Korea and Central and South America in my class. And so it gives you a bigger vision of what God is doing around the world, saving people, conforming people to.
Okay. But she was going to say something really inflammatory. I had to cut it. So anyway, so I do want to talk how we've structured the classes. So we have at our foundational level things that are going to be philosophical ideas about biblical counseling, how to study the book counseling, how does theology work in biblical counseling, methods of biblical change, and just some overview about the history of the movement and the practical stuff. Then the theory classes, this is sort of the rubber meets the road type classes. This is where you're going to do marriage and family counseling, common counseling issues, which is going to be things like eating disorder and depression, common advanced counseling issues. Has anyone heard from Garrett this week? He's going to teach you things like crisis counseling, suicide prevention, things like that. Finally, we have the counseling practice all the way at the top here. You see about that. That's going to include Dr. Kellerman's class, which is a counseling. I've been saying all week that most people say it's a good thing that they cry in your class, and I don't know if that's something you're telling them to say or if they actually. I just know that one of the first requests I always get when his module comes to town is, we need tissues. Never really know how to take that. Then also in there, that's when you're going to do your third counseling and write your thesis. Now, I do just want to mention real briefly why a thesis. So when you graduate the program, the reason we have the thesis is we want you to have a helpful resource that you can use. So there are two theses. You can write an original thesis, and you can be like Chris Moles and write on an issue that has not been talked about too much in biblical counseling. Or we can provide a series of 10 case studies. A lot of students in foreign countries end up using that. It's, something, when we started the program, when we had our first Brazilian student, they said there is nothing in Portuguese, like literally nothing. There is the Bible, but no resources beyond that. So in a place like that, you take this counseling manual that you create, and now that is a resource for you and for others to be trained. So so we talked a little bit about how the classes work. Let me comparative costs between us and some of our closest competitors. So is anyone here part of a church that's in the Southern Baptist? Okay, so if you guys wanted to do the more traditional Southern or Southeastern, you'd get a price comparable to us. Their delivery method would be as flexible as ours, and I haven't looked into its distance program, but that is the cost. If you want to do the more traditional seminary experience, you're paying almost, and in some cases almost twice as much as you would be with Faith Bible Seminary. And I will also point out, guys, that this $10 plus fees, that represents a $50 increase, a $50 increase from 2008. So we have worked very hard to try to keep our prices as low as we can so that we can provide world-class biblical counseling education price. So, though, I do want to we're going to try to hear from David. He's from Ohio. He's a missionary in Romania. And he's on how do you help, through adoption and biblical counseling. He doesn't have it quite set down, but that's where it is. I expected to cut off early, but we'll see.
I'm David Lee. I live in Romania, where I help people who adopt and foster children. If counseling is a regular part of your ministry, I really recommend the Master's of Arts in Biblical. An important part of your ministry. I just really have to recommend that you go for the Master's. And the Masters of Arts here at Faith Bible Seminary is a great program. I have been able to use it in my.
Yeah, there it is, cut off early. So, but you got the gist. I was hoping that I was gonna make a joke. Oh, I went 1 for 3. That's a Hall of Fame batting average. I do want to say, how fast can you use the degree? Can you use it right away? The answer is definitely. I got this email from a student who started in November of 2018, so just about 3 months ago. So this morning, I was someone who has been struggling with their thoughts. I did better in prep before taking your class. I knew care and the Spirit was leading by asking my God seeking to grow my counseling in, and how is God seeking to grow? The training I've had has made a real difference, even though in one class. That was just one class. If you are ready to take the next step in your counseling training so that you can advise others, if you are prepared to use God to help the hurting, are prepared for new opportunities to learn from this faculty, then Faith Bible Seminary is ready to have you as an MABC student. Thus concludes my presentation. Answer any questions. So again, we'll do some questions and answers for another 12, 15 minutes. But if you gotta go, you gotta go. Don't forget to take your free their shoes, okay? Question in the back.
How many credit hours for the Masters?
How many credit hours for the Masters? It is 36 credit hours for the Master of Arts in Biblical Counseling. Okay? Any other questions? Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm getting this one mixed up with the MDiv program. Is there a component where your church needs to be paying you on some sort of that's the MDiv, right?
That is the MDiv, yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's not really, you don't need to be vocationally necessarily being supported by your church in order to go through this.
Yeah, so the question is, do you have to be paid by your church? And the answer is no. You can pay out of pocket. Now, certainly we have had people men who are pastors, women who are some sort of ministry leader who have had the program paid for by their church. That's not impossible. Go ahead.
I have a young child. Has anyone ever used church ladies as a resource for childcare during the module week?
Yeah, so the question is, has anyone used local church members to utilize for childcare? Not yet. Not yet. If you know somebody who's willing to do that, then you are welcome to utilize it. However, typically we've used local church members for housing. Is anybody here taking advantage of housing from a church member? Yeah, so very similar thing. It's not something I can promise that we'll figure out for everybody should they come up, but we do our best and we typically have it filled. However, never childcare. We've never gotten that one figured out. All right, go ahead.
What are the criteria? You said the 10% for people who do not have their bachelor's degree?
Yeah.
What are the criteria for that?
So how do you enroll if you have a bachelor's degree is the question on the table. If you don't have a bachelor's degree is the question. So as I mentioned earlier, we can accept 10% of our total student body with no bachelor's degree. So that means if we have 100 total students across the whole seminary, we can accept 10 students, 120, accept 12, so on and so forth. The way that will work is that you will apply as normal and you will not include your transcripts. So the seminary will then look at your writing sample and your ministry experience. If you have no bachelor's work at all, then likely you will be accepted on academic probation. That means you have to achieve a certain GPA for your first 2 semesters, or we may have to have a talk about continuing the program. You know, we're a grace-based counseling program. We're not gonna drop the hammer if we don't have to. And then when you finish the program, you will not have a master's degree. You will get a certificate of completion, okay? That's just a different title that we have to give for accreditation reasons. But if you ever go back and earn your bachelor's degree, you will automatically just let us know, send us an official transcript, we'll mail you a new diploma. Bev Moore actually did that, one of the people I mentioned earlier. Go ahead.
What do the semesters look like? Is their classes start every 15 weeks, or are they breaks in between? Or?
Yep, there's 2 semesters. The winter semester runs from the first full week of November until the first full week of March. So in this case, November 4th till March 9th. Then the next semester runs from the last full week of April until the first full week of August. So this coming semester, that's going to be April 22nd to August 8th, somewhere thereabouts. And you got a question?
Yeah, does it matter what your bachelor's was in?
No, it doesn't matter what your bachelor's is in. The reason we have the bachelor's requirement is for accreditation reasons, we need to have that so that we can confer a master's. And 2, it really just helps us know that you can do bachelor's level work, which means that you should be able to do master's level work. I saw a question over here. Was that my imagination? Go.
Do you have to start in November?
You do not have to start in November. We have true rolling admissions. When I was applying for my master's degree, a lot of state schools said, yeah, we have rolling admissions, but I have never heard of anybody getting accepted in January. I'm convinced that that's there strictly for college athletes so that they can get them training. That's a conspiracy theory. I don't know if it's actually true or not, okay? But yes, you can, so most years we accept typically the same amount of students in each semester. So while I'm waiting for, if anyone else has more questions, I'm happy to ask them, but I do want to explain one thing that a lot of people ask about, and that is how our program works with ACBC certification. If you want to pursue ACBC certification, you can do it concurrently with our program. Basically, the way that's going to work is if you are not ACBC certified now, you will take, there are 5 classes that have taken in a particular order. You will allow you to opt out of phase 1. Then you'll be in phase 2, you write your exams, turn those into ABHE. Once they are accepted, you'll be in phase 3. When you are in phase 3, this is all while you're doing schoolwork with us, you can pick an ACBC fellow, work with them, and take our counseling supervision concurrently, and the first 30 hours you do with an ACBC fellow will count towards the 50 that is required of them. And you had a question? Someone else had I saw a question, sorry, over there.
It was, I guess along those lines, I was just gonna ask, would you recommend finishing the ACBC certification before coming to the program?
Yeah, there is some timing involved, just because depending on, I know ACBC has a time limit, I believe it's 4 years from the date you finish your basic training, they want you to be certified, if I'm remembering that correctly, someone told me that.
Your exams have to be turned into that.
Okay. So there is a bit of a timing issue. If you're planning to take 5 years to finish the program, then you'll need to kind of work out when you apply for ACBC. I will, to be forthright, a lot of times taking those first 5 and then starting ACBC certification, it doesn't work out for a lot of students. A lot of them just do phase 1. It's sometimes a little faster that way. But yeah, there's a bit of a timing issue. And then beyond that, just think about what works best for your ministry context. You know, on 2 extremes, we have one student who is from Hungary. They don't even use the same alphabet, so she just said, I don't care about ACBC, I'm gonna do my supervised counseling. Then on the other extreme, if you're here in Lafayette, Indiana, and you wanna counsel with Faith Biblical Counseling Ministries, we won't let you counsel one-on-one without ACBC certification. So most people fall somewhere in between, so it's just kind of up to you to determine what would be best. And ACBC is a fine organization. We love what they do, but ultimately their goal is a little bit different from ours. Their goal is to provide a baseline level of certification and training, whereas we want to train you to be leaders. Good question. Anyone else? I think I saw you first.
Right. What percentage of people who apply get accepted? So there's, so it's 70 people who came to this thing. If we all applied,
It's really hard to answer. I would say if you have a bachelor's degree, and your 3.0 GPA, and you have basic experience in biblical counseling, and we don't see anything questionable on your recommendations, it's pretty high. I'd say 75%. Go ahead.
Yeah, so back to the ACBC certification bit. If you were to recommend it, not doing it at the same time, doing one and then the other, which order would you recommend?
Well, again, it depends on you. If you want to get started with our program right away, then do our program, then ACBC. If you don't know if the program's right for you, do ACBC first. There's really no one great way to do it. Any other questions? Okay, the spirit has moved me to end, or the silence was too awkward. So thank you guys for coming out. Grab your coffee, tying their shoes, Christ-centered approach to preparing for parenthood. And I'm just going to turn off the live stream here. And if you have any questions for me specifically, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah.